Hello, and welcome to a podcast dedicated to inspiring you to live a healthy life. I am Keith Jones, and I'm a wellness coach at the Mayo Clinic. And I am so excited to have on our show a member of the Mayo Clinic family, Dr. Noel. Dr. Noel, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
My name is Pierre Noel. I'm a hematologist working at Mayo Clinic in Arizona. I've been doing transplants now for over 30 years, and I'm director of the Mayo Center for Military Medicine.
Great. So tell me a little bit about each one of those. So for people that may not know, what is hematology?
Hematology is the specialty in medicine which takes care of blood disease and diseases of some of the disease involving the immune system, such as lymph nodes, spleen, so on and so forth.
Oh, great. And when you talk about transplant, I think of bone marrow transplant, kidney transplants. I think that's what most people think of. How does it feel to be practicing that specialty in medicine that literally helps extend life for people?
Well, I think it's very exciting to provide people with difficult diseases opportunities to have a normal lifespan and to be able to be healthy again. So I think it's a great privilege for me to be able to be involved in that area of medicine.
Right. You know, I don't want to miss this opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about the benefits that each one of us in society could make toward the giving an organ or some part of ourselves to help extend life in regards to transplant. So I kind of have had a misconception until we talked, and I think some people may, that when it comes to bone marrow transplants, that it's really, really painful. There's this long needle that comes out. Am I off base about that?
I think for the majority of bone marrow donors or stem cell donors, the procedure does not involve surgery. What we do is collect stem cells from the peripheral blood, and in the minority of cases, we still do collect from the bone marrow, but it's probably less than 10% of the transplants we do.
Great. I really have to become a donor, after talking to you, and I'm so inspired by the work you do.
Great.
Good. And when it comes to military medicine, having served in the military for 4 years in the Marine Corps, I want to thank you for everything that you do for our service people, men and women. Thank you so much.
Great.
Is that rewarding for you too?
It is very rewarding for me. I think I've spent a lot of years in the military, and it's great to be able to provide them training, for Mayo to be involved in research which benefits our troops and the military, and to provide access to the military to Mayo, which is a great medical system.
Absolutely. I'm so grateful to be a part of the Mayo family. It is amazing. I mean, literally, the patient comes first in every consideration.
Exactly.
That's great. So I want to talk a little bit about your childhood to the present. So I know you as someone who's self-disciplined, you're driven, you also have a really mild and calm temperament, like you're peaceful. Did you start out this way as a child?
Probably not. Like most children, I was probably rambunctious, and I'm sure I was challenging from my parents. But early on, I think I was driven, and I realized early on that I wanted to go in medicine and that I was very attracted to sports. So early on in life, I got involved in martial arts, and I also got involved in track and field. And this probably helped me in my course to be able to accomplish some of the goals I wanted to accomplish.
When I think about martial arts, I think about the peaceful warriors.
Correct.
So did that help, cultivate a calmness and a peace within you, you think?
Yes, I think it provided me with the opportunity also of building self-confidence. As you, I'm sure, remember when you go to school and you're a little boy, there's a lot of pushing and tugging and
Yes.
sometimes a little bit of bullying. So I think to be able to stand up for yourself and be able to be in control of the situation provides you an opportunity to become self-confident and become more peaceful because you feel comfortable with yourself.
Absolutely. And to what end did your parents influence your behavior and the way that you see life?
I think my parents had a role. I think my parents were in a generation where they felt that their children should be driven and accomplish goals. I think a lot of what I did was being a self-starter.
Yes.
I was not really pushed to do competitive sports and so on and so forth, but it's something that I felt was important for me, and I always felt early in life that it was important for me to be in control of the situation, not let control be outside of me.
Right.
So in order to do this, I wanted to be able to have as much of a balanced life as possible and be able to not only be good in class when I was in high school, but also be able to be physically active and be balanced in my approach.
You know, I'm so glad you said that, because I think in a lot of ways I was really driven, but I wasn't very balanced. And so in the pursuit of your goals, and let's say pursuing a career in medicine, you know, it can be all-encompassing, you know, with the studies, the requirements, and the hours that you have to put in. So how did you, you know, obviously with what your parents taught you and you having this internal clock within you to kind of know how to use your energy and what was the best way to channel it, how did you have these big goals, you got to drive behind it, to maintain balance and not be caught up in the goals themselves?
Well, I think sometimes in life you have the illusion that if you want to accomplish something, you have to put 100% of your energy on that project. And sometimes when you do this, you burn out, and also you don't have the physical and mental resources to accomplish your goal. So a lot of it, like most of us, was trial and error.
Right.
Where at some point I did go 100%, and I realized that my energy was dropping, my focus was dropping, and that I didn't have the best mood in the world. So in order to correct that, what I found is that if I introduced exercise, if I add a balanced, good quality diet, and I minimize things such as alcohol and lack of sleep, that my overall performance was better, that I really didn't need to invest 14 hours a day. If I invested 8 to 10 hours a day, and these were quality 8 to 10 hours, my outcome, or the outcome, was much better than if I tried to burn myself out by working 14, 15-hour days.
Okay, let's reiterate this point again, because this is such an important point. Because most people go hard charging after a goal. They don't let up, and they think that that's going to get them to that goal faster. They're going to be more effective in pursuing it. But you're saying that if you balance it with exercise, if you have a sensible, healthy diet, and that you work on your attitude, that you will be much more effective.
Absolutely, and I think that we all know this interacting with people. A lot of it is attitude, mindset, and your mindset and attitude are very dependent on how you feel, your energy level, and your ability to be able to meet the challenge without having negative reactions, without being de-energized, without being negative and critical. So a lot of this mindset is created by investing in yourself. I think if you exercise, if you have an adequate diet, if you're happy, you're going to go in the workplace much more positive. And if you emit positive energy, you will get positive energy in return.
Absolutely.
If you come into workplace and you're negative, you're angry, you feel bitter, abused, what happens is your people around you respond to this energy, and you perform less, and the people around you perform less. So a lot of it is taking control of who you are and how you're perceived in your environment, and capitalizing on the people around you to help you succeed.
Wow. I mean, You're dropping knowledge right now, Dr. Noel. I mean, seriously, I'm a big proponent of working on the mindset and cultivating that kindness, that positivity, and that loving spirit. Wow. I mean, this is just great. Can you give an example where your practice isn't what it is now, to where you reacted to a situation and now you respond much differently? So you may have reacted negatively, or you could have handled it better. You were at the effect of life and not in control of yourself. Is there anything you can think of maybe early in your career?
Right, I think there's multiple examples, and even if you strive to achieve balance, there's going to be times where you fall and things don't go the way you want them to go. And so I think on a regular basis, there are times where I overinvest in work. I start, getting tired, somewhat burned out. And then at that point, I looked at the environment around me, and I feel the environment around me is bringing me down, when in reality, the environment around me has nothing to do with bringing myself down. I'm the one bringing myself down.
Right.
And I think that this realization, as I get older, I can kick myself in the behind and say, hey, nobody's doing this to you. You're doing this to yourself. Take control of the situation and rebalance things. And I think that's something which is important to do.
It sounds to me like you are saying that you have continued to develop this heightened awareness of when you feel yourself, get into a mood that's not optimal, or you feel a loss of power.
Correct.
How long, obviously it's a lifelong journey, but when did you first notice your capacity to be aware like that?
Probably it's been a progressive, our lives are a journey.
Yes.
And it's progressive. I think that as I get older, I am much more conscious of this than I was 20 years ago. And I think I feel in better control. I don't blame my environment for my failures. And I look up to myself to be able to solve solutions and to capitalize from the people around me and try to tap into their energy and let them tap into my energy. So I think it's learning how to work with yourself and with people. And I think one of the important things is learning who you are. And I think it sounds simple, but we really don't spend a lot of time trying to think, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, and what are the circumstances where I'm likely to fail. And once you start investing in understanding yourself better, it's easier for you to find solutions, and also it makes you a better citizen in a group of people because you understand yourself better, you understand your reactions to individuals, and I think you do much better.
When I started at Mayo, I started as a volunteer at Mayo, and I was working on a project in which you were leading. And what resonated with me was how I felt completely respected and valued by you. I mean, you're Dr. Noel. I mean, you got titles and titles and titles, behind your name. But you felt like you made me feel as if the contribution that I was making was as important and integral as everyone there. Have you always been that way?
I probably was not always that way. I think that a lot of this comes with maturity. There's a point in life when you're young, you want to shine, you want to have your space in the limelight. And I think as you evolve, you realize that there's much more enjoyment and pleasure in seeing people around you succeed than trying to highlight your own performance in yourself. I think when you highlight everybody around you, you indirectly highlight yourself. And as well as when you invest in other people, you tend to get much more in return than if you invest only in yourself.
Wow. Yeah, I know that's how you made me feel, and so I want to thank you for that.
Oh, you're very welcome.
What are your daily rituals that you practice to keep you at your peak, at your best? You know, what do you do physically? How do you work on your mindset daily? And how do you cultivate this positive attitude?
One is I wake up early in the morning, around 4:30 to 5, and the first thing I do is I go to the gym and I do about 20 minutes of stretching. I do core, and I will run or do stairs for 30 to 40 minutes. And the only thing I do is drink black coffee, and I take about some branched-chain amino acids. And the goal of doing this is to try to burn some fat, but it also starts my day very well because I look at my day and I can start strategizing how I will address my day and problems and so on and so forth. But it provides me with a lot of energy. Once I get home and take a shower, I'm energized and I am ready to address any type of problem. My mood is good, my energy is up. The other thing I found important is diet has a big role to play on how you feel, your energy level, and so I've been very conscious about my diet, about my protein intake, the fact of not trying to eat too much concentrated sugars, or trying to prevent insulin surges and so on and so forth, so that my energy is good throughout the day. I've been also cautious in using antioxidants and so on and so forth in order to keep myself as healthy as possible. Then I do my day's work, and then when my day is over, I go back to the gym for another hour. And at that point, I do predominantly weightlifting, but I'll tend to do high-intensity aerobic activities with my weightlifting. Right. So, for example, I'll sprint a quarter mile, lift, sprint a quarter mile, lift, in order to activate my system. Try to minimize my use of alcohol and try to make sure that I have 7 to 8 hours of sleep.
Sleep is big, isn't it?
Sleep is very important to recover. Now, the downside when people look at my schedule is they say, wow, this is kind of a tough schedule, and there has to be things which you can't do. And the answer is yes. I have not opened a television set for probably 5 years.
Wait, repeat that. Repeat that. I love it.
And I don't spend a lot of time doing these things. So I think that there's, for me, it's not a sacrifice.
Right.
But for some individuals, to give up 2 to 3 hours of television nightly would be a big sacrifice. Right. So I've been able to, over the years, to adapt the lifestyle that I'm living, and I'm very comfortable with it. But to be able to mimic what I'm doing takes some effort for some individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you feel any less informed than other people who watch 2 to 3 hours of television a day?
No, because what I do is I read the news, and I can select my sources of information. I read the news, and I'm probably as informed as anyone else, but it takes much less time to read the news, and also you have much more information in reading the news than listening to television where they constantly repeat the same story.
And with getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, obviously you have a time in which you get to bed to make sure that happens, so you're up early enough, feeling ready for your workout the next day. Do you feel like, have you ever gone to the gym, worked out in the morning, or gone for a run, and came back and said, you know what, I wish I hadn't done that? Or do you always feel like, I'm so glad I went today?
Well, I think that, the one important thing is to be kind with yourself.
Right.
And I think that I will go to the gym, but if at some point I feel tired, I feel drained, what I'll do is I'll modify my workout. I'll still do the workout, but I'll modify it. Maybe it's not the best time for me to do high-intensity aerobic. Maybe what I should do instead is do a little bit more endurance. Maybe instead of lifting heavy that day, I should do more reps and lift lighter. So a lot of it is listening to your body. And it's the same thing for sleep. I think we look at sleep as a time where we, close the computer and we're out for 8 hours or 7 hours. But I think there's much more complexity to sleep than this. And I think that the quality of your sleep is important. And now with all the apps available, it is possible to monitor your sleep and find out how many hours of REM sleep you have, deep sleep, and so on and so forth. And once you understand that better, you can also understand what impacts that. So for example, should you take a hot shower before going to bed? When should be your last meal?
Right.
Are there things that you're eating which are impacting your sleep? If you're drinking alcohol, how does that impact your sleep? And then you get to know yourself a little bit better and see the impact of these things on your sleep pattern, and see also the impact of your sleep pattern on your mental and physical performance the next day.
Absolutely. And so what I hear you saying is that you really dedicated to understanding yourself and setting yourself up to be your best. And
You're
so
correct.
when it comes to the gym, you go there in the morning, and if you're not feeling like, it's going to be in your best interest to do a HIIT workout that day, a
Right.
high intensity interval training that day, you may modify it, but it will still be your best based on how you're feeling that day.
Exactly.
Got you.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's really important. But the important thing is that you show up.
Exactly.
That's great. Now, have you gone into a workout to where prior to the workout, maybe you have an issue or something that you're going to be addressing that day, and it's on your mind, and the way you see it prior to a workout, do you see it in a completely different way post-workout because you've allowed yourself to become energized, and it kind of clears up your thinking and you're better able to, see it clear, focus better?
Yes, the simple answer is yes. I think frequently when we have problems, we focus on this problem and we forget about ourselves. And we try to resolve the problem, but it becomes circular. You have no new element to bring in to resolve the problem, and you just worry. And at that point, you're not kind to yourself. You say, well, maybe I won't go to the gym this morning and I'll just think about this problem. And in reality, if you do this, you're not going to find a solution. So I think the first thing I do is to try to be good to myself so that I'm not resentful. Because of my schedule, and I'm sure for you and anyone else who trains extensively, if I don't train, I become a little bit resentful. I feel, I've cheated myself.
Right.
I've, instead of spending this hour working, I have not, and I've cheated myself. Then I become more resentful, and it compounds the problem. It makes it more difficult for me to resolve the issue. If I focus a little bit on energizing myself, being good to myself, I come and tackle the problem with a much more energized and positive outlook.
We've talked a little bit about how your daily practice helps you in the workplace. How does it help you at home in your home life, with your spouse and with your children? How does it help you there?
I think in the same way. First thing of all, in my family, my spouse and my kids are now adults, but they all exercise extensively. When I raised the kids, obviously for my schedule, if I wanted to spend time with the kids had to be part of the exercise schedule.
I love it.
So very early on, when my children were young, even when they were 5 years old, I would start running outside, and they would run like one block and then be tired, and I'd continue running. But then as they became older, one block would become 2 blocks, and 2 blocks would become 3 blocks, and pretty soon they were running longer and faster than I did. So I think I integrated the family very early on.
Into these healthy habits.
Correct. My wife exercises as much as I do. We don't necessarily do exactly the same exercises, but she exercises extensively. The other thing with the children, I have all boys, and initially when I started training with the boys, there was a competitive aspect of the boys competing against dad, and because I was older and bigger than they were at that time, there is always a risk because your kids always want to differentiate
Right.
themselves from you, and you can't always be faster and stronger than your kids, because at some point they'll say, so why am I doing this?
Right, exactly.
So what we did, even though my boys now are big guys, my boys trained with my wife. Because at that point, my wife was much less competitive, and she's obviously smaller. So the kids didn't feel as threatened doing weightlifting with my wife as they did doing it with me. And also, my wife was previously a competitive gymnast, so her form was markedly better than mine. So I think they learned better by training with my wife. But I think the same skills which you bring in the workplace apply to home.
Right.
I think that your ability to not react or overreact, being able to have emotional intelligence, and be able to read a situation and be able to be balanced in your approach is very important. The other thing that sports and activities give you is the ability to be assertive without being abrasive.
Right.
Being able, when something does not work out, to be able very calmly to say, you know what, this doesn't work out for me. Instead of becoming resentful, starting to have passive-aggressive type of behavior and ruminating about issues which are not resolved, the best thing to do is to address these things promptly and just say, you know, this doesn't really work for me. Let's try to find out a solution. And that works well in the workplace, and it also works well in a family setting, instead of letting animosity mount
Right.
over time.
I got to tell you, you and I have, worked from time to time together, and I love the opportunity to develop, a deeper, relationship with you and a friendship. So thank you for that. And from my standpoint, your contribution, to your practice, to your patients, to the men and women who you are part of your team at the hospital and what you're doing at home is so inspiring. What would you like your legacy to be? And how do you think your daily practices, your daily rituals are contributing to you fulfilling on that legacy?
I think what I would like my legacy to be is a legacy of engagement and a legacy of mentorship, of being able to be engaged in issues in a constructive way without being destructive, looking for constructive solutions, and being able to derive pleasure from other people's successes instead of just focusing on yourself and your own success.
Wow. And how are your rituals helping you do that?
I think the rituals that I have balance me and keep me humble in what I try to do on a daily basis. As you train daily and you put yourselves goals and objectives, you realize that it's easier said than done, and that the goals, which are both physical, work, family, are things to strive for, but they're not always easy to accomplish. And I think because of this, it brings humility, realizing that there's things which are difficult to accomplish, which require a lot of energy and effort. But I think doing these rituals sets me up for success and also permits me to be a better individual.
Wow. I love it. Dr. Noel, thank you for a
You're very
great
welcome.
conversation, and I'm so grateful to have had this time with you.
Great.
Thank you, Dr. Noel.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.